Us before the awards.
This is b4Nashville Live. Have a question for a guest?
Send it to us via Messenger.
Here's your host, George Davis.
Welcome back to b4Nashville, where we introduce the country stars of tomorrow to the country fans of today. Apparently lost track of time as Austin and I were just sitting there chit-chatting, and we were both kind of getting getting messages about are you guys going on or not, so we apologize for that, but kind of apologize for it. I'm not going to say we do apologize for it, but, hey, anyway. So tonight I've got a guy, I've got some really interesting things that I found out about him that we're going to get to do one of our fun little segments on. So we'll do that here in a bit. But before we do that, let's give a shout out to our sponsors, and we'll be back with our guest for tonight coming up in 30 seconds.
b4Nashville is proudly sponsored by Go-Go Tuners, the go-to tuner for professional and amateur musicians. Get your Go-Go Tuner at gogotuners.com. By Heart to Heart Coffee, the coffee that gives back. Find out more at heart2heartcoffee.com. By Sibby's Apparel, worn by heroes, made with respect. Order yours at sibby'sapparel.com. And by Three Rangers Whiskey, not for the weak or faint-hearted. 3rangers.com.
And I want to give a big thanks to our sponsors. Our feature sponsor tonight is Sibby's Apparel. Go check them out at sibby'sapparel.com. They've got some great looking shirts, hats, hoodies, and they take and recycle used military uniforms, and they put those into all their clothing, which I need to order guess I need to order a hoodie from them at some point. But anyway, tonight we got Austin Dixon joining us. He's from Oklahoma. And Austin, man, how you been? I know you've been kind of under the weather.
Yeah, it's been kind of a long week. I don't know what I caught, in typical male fashion. I didn't go to the doctor to find out. But yeah, it's been a long week. But today's the best day by far. And we got a lot going on this week. So I've been doing whatever I can to rest and get ready for tomorrow. We got a big show tomorrow night. So,
where are you playing tomorrow night?
So we're playing at this venue in Stillwater, Oklahoma called the Tumbleweed Dance Hall. It's a real popular venue for red dirt country artists, which, Oklahoma, Texas, that's a big thing around here. Right. But we're actually playing in a battle of the bands. And the winner of the competition, it's 3 rounds. Tomorrow's round 1, but the winner of the competition gets to open for Parker McCollum at the big festival that the Tumbleweed puts on every spring.
Okay. And that's the one where they can order tickets for, it's like $5 a ticket. And that kind of is the voting process for the bands. Is that correct?
It's one of the processes. They say it's not a popularity contest. So the ticket sales are only, part of the factor. They also have 3 judges on site that are going to be, I think, the bulk of, criteria for who the winner is. But the ticket sales are a big component of it too. So yeah, if anybody watching the show, if they want to help us win the competition, go check out the link on my Facebook page. Tickets are $5, and every ticket sold counts as a vote.
All right. Well, good deal. So go check that out. Let's get started just finding out a little bit about you. Where were you born and raised at? I know you're an Okie, born and bred. So kind of give me some thoughts on that. Where you
bred for sure. I was actually born in Plano, Texas.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So I'm like a 4th generation Oklahoman. I'm not sure, but my dad, right before I was born, he took a job down in Dallas.
Okay.
And so my parents were living down there for a couple of years, and then we moved back to Oklahoma when I was a little bitty, 2 years old, I think. So while I was born in Texas, I'm an Okie for sure.
Right.
And my whole family's from Sand Springs, Oklahoma, which is just west of Tulsa. It's a suburb of Tulsa. When I was growing up, it felt like a small town to me. And I think if you ask people that live there, they would still say it kind of is. But if you look up the population, it's like 18,000 or something. And every time I go back, it doesn't feel small. They keep throwing things up. Every time I go back to town, I remember I think I was like a junior in college, and I came back to town, and all of a sudden we had a Chick-fil-A. And I was like, what the hell? That was a big deal. And people were lined up all the way down the street to get it, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You made it when you got Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And there's like a Starbucks there and everything now. It's crazy. But
Wow.
but it's weird. The city limits encompass such a huge area. Most of it's pretty rural. if I had to guess, the actual downtown population is maybe 4 or 5,000. Um,
Okay.
but Sand Springs encompasses such a huge area that I think the numbers are a little bit inflated because of that.
Right. Right. Well, and when they do the census, if you live rurally, it's like the closest. I think they how do they term that? The closest uh, metro area or whatever to you, and
Yeah.
they don't define metro as like a Kansas City or St. Louis or Oklahoma City. That's just a certain amount of population within the town. I think. I don't know. I've never really worked for the Census Bureau. I've just done a lot of reading on it, but
Yeah. I
uh,
mean, I mean, to give you an example, like we lived on the very edge of Sand Springs city limits, and it was a 30-minute drive for me to go to school.
oh wow,
So, like I said, it encompassed a big area, and so even though, it on paper it's not really a small town, it felt like a small town. So,
right. Right. So, how did you get into music in Sand Springs?
so it really started. Um, we were so my parents built a house when I was 9 or 10 years old, and while that house was being built, we were kind of in between houses, and one of the one of the houses we lived in while that house was being built, there were some kids down the street. The whole family basically were musicians, and they kind of got me into music and started playing guitar. I got an electric guitar when I was 10, played it for a couple years, but never really took it real seriously. I knew some power chords, Smoke on the Water, stuff like that.
Right.
Um, and then when I was 15, we went to a flea market down in Texas, in Canton, Texas. There's a big flea market down there. It's like a square mile or something.
Wow.
And I bought an acoustic guitar. It's actually the one hanging behind me right here. That was my first ever acoustic guitar. I bought it for $20 at that flea market.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And when I got that acoustic guitar, I looked up some chords and learned all the basic chords, and then, started learning some of my favorite songs. And it wasn't too long after that I started trying to sing while playing the guitar. I've always been a singer. I always loved to sing. I got made fun of it, or made fun of for it a lot when I was in school, and I sang in choir in school and stuff like that. So I've always been a singer, but never really got serious about it till I got that acoustic guitar.
Right. That's something if you notice, if you can see him, I don't know if you can really see him because there's really no lights on them. I've got guitars hanging up on the wall here, and they're primarily for my boys. Both my boys play. One of them plays bass, so I've got a bass guitar up here, and I've got an electric and an acoustic, which the acoustic is like a 1969 or something like that. I don't remember the brand of it, but I bought it at Goodwill for $40 and looked it up because it has the serial number tag still inside, and it's like we're $200, and I'm like, yeah,
Wow.
that's not anywhere.
That's
I'm gonna
cool.
hang on to that.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I've always thought about taking it to the local music store and having them do a setup on it and restring it and stuff like that, and then trying to play, but I've just never, it's like time. that that one four-letter word that seems to get a hold of all of us, I just don't have.
Yeah, I don't think that one hanging behind me is worth a damn thing. It was cheap, and it sounded bad when I bought it, and it sounds bad now. I've I bought that for $20 and played it for like a year, and I've been playing a $1,200 Taylor ever since I graduated high school. So
Wow.
that's a big difference between the two of them.
It is, and I don't know, even restrung and set up, if that one would sound, worth anything, but you never know. Um, so do you remember the first time that you performed in public after you learned to play and stuff?
Uh, it depends on how you define my first performance. I mean, I did the talent show when I was in third grade. I sang "We Will Rock You" by Queen. uh, but I think my first legitimate like public show, I played. I did a little show for uh, the FFA, the branch of FFA at my high school. I think I was a junior in high school when I did that, and that was my first real show that I ever played. And the people that were there that I went to high school with, when I see them, they still talk about it. So I guess it went pretty well. But when I see pictures, like the microphone is like pretty much dead vertical, and I'm like leaning over it, singing into it. So obviously I had no idea what I was doing, but I did. So I did that, and then I think it was not too long after that I started writing songs a lot more regularly. And my senior year, I did the talent show again and played an original song, and it wasn't that great of a song, but everybody in the crowd went nuts when I was done. And
Right.
I've been, sort of chasing that high ever since. Right. So,
Right. Right. And one of the questions I love to ask songwriters, especially when you say that song you wrote when you were a senior, do you have a recording of it? Are you able to go back and listen to it? And do you go back and listen to it?
so I've always recorded my first cut demos on my phone, and I've never been real good about exchanging, all of my saved files from phone to phone. And so I think a lot of that's been lost in translation. I still kind of remember how the chorus goes, but when I think back, or actually, matter of fact, my mom got a video of that performance, and I have
Mhm.
it on a hard drive somewhere. And
Okay.
I think I listened to it 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh man, that song is just not very good, not as good as I thought it was at the time. But I think I wrote it about my high school girlfriend, and she was impressed. And so at the time, I guess
Right.
that's what mattered.
So have you ever thought about, has it ever crossed your mind to go back and rework it now that you're a little bit, now that you're much more versed at songwriting than what you were then?
um,
Maybe tweaking.
I've gone back to a couple of songs that I wrote back then and messed with them a little bit, but I don't think I've ever really gotten real far with them.
Right.
I just For me, a lot of times, I've gotten better at it now, but at the time when I would write songs, it was all about whatever emotion I was feeling right at that moment, right?
Right.
And I just felt like when I went back to those songs, I wasn't in that headspace anymore, and so it was hard for me to really reimagine them.
Right.
Nowadays I can write songs that aren't necessarily relevant to my current life, but yeah, that's just kind of how I remember feeling about it when I went back and revisited them.
Right. Um, Now, as you're growing up and you're starting to write and stuff, who were some of the bands or artists that influenced you to get more into music or to start writing or playing?
So I was really fortunate to grow up with parents that had a wide taste in music. So I was raised by my mom and stepdad, and my stepdad, he liked country music, he liked old school hip hop, he liked 80s hair metal, Metallica, Pantera. I got to listen to everything under the sun for the most part, and I loved all of it. Um, and I'll never forget riding around with him in his truck, and he was teaching me the words to Margaritaville, but it was the Alan Jackson version with Jimmy
Uh-huh.
Buffett in it too. I'll never forget that. But um, on top of that, I spent a lot of time with my grandpa Dixon growing up, and we would go deer hunting every year. And we had about
Mhm.
an hour and a half drive to get to the property where we would hunt, and a lot of it was down old back roads in northeastern Oklahoma to get there. And he always had either like a oldie station playing, like Marvin Gaye and um, I can't remember the name of the band, but it's like um, there's something happening in here. What it
Yeah.
is ain't exactly yeah, I can't remember the name of that band right now, but that kind of music. And then he also always had the classic country station playing. Um, so if you go to my social media, you'll see a lot of covers of all those really old school country songs, and that's how I got into that stuff, because he was always listening to it, and I always loved it. So
Right.
I got exposed to a really wide variety of music, and I'm really thankful for that, because um, I don't feel very pigeonholed as far as my influences go.
Right. Now, are those the same influence you had as far as your writing style or technique, or they're different influences, maybe current or something else?
Well, when I started writing songs, I was listening to a lot of like singer-songwriter, Americana type stuff, things that would come out of like Austin, Texas, for example. Um, and I started out writing songs like that, and they're nothing like the songs I write nowadays, to be honest. They were much softer. Like I have an EP on, Apple Music and stuff that's really old. It's from like 2014. And you
Mhm.
can hear that in those songs. I thought I was going to be an Americana singer or something at the time, and sort of trying to rebel against my country roots. Obviously, if you listen to my voice, it kind of got that baritone thing going on, which lends really well to country music. But
Right.
so that's what I was doing at the time. But then, I sort of embraced my country roots and got more into writing country music. And I think when I first started really trying to write true blue country music, I was listening to Red Dirt stuff, Cody Johnson, and
Mhm.
then I've always been a huge George Strait fan. I can't say I've ever really written a song that sounded like a George Strait song, but I've always wanted to sing like George. you know I don't know that I've really stuck to that path necessarily, but I've always loved George's voice, and always wanted to at least have a little bit of George flair in my voice if I could manage it.
Right. Right. And I mean, he's just one of those that if you love country music, you can't help but be influenced by George Strait.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if I met somebody that listens to country music and they say they don't like George Strait, I wouldn't believe that they like country music.
Right. Probably turn around and walk off. Say, see ya.
Yeah, exactly.
So with your music, what is unique about it that people just seem to gravitate to and really like to listen to that you've noticed?
Well, people seem to, and I've never been real impressed with myself with anything, to be honest, um, including my vocal abilities. But people really seem to like my voice, which has been
Mhm.
a pleasant surprise for me. Um, I've always been my biggest critic for sure. Um, but other than that, I mean, a lot of the music I've written as of late that's going to be on this project we're working on right now is very tailored to where I grew up and the things I grew up doing and visuals of growing up in Oklahoma. And I talk about Oklahoma sunsets and almost every song that's on the record, and you know uh, there's a river that goes through my hometown. I talk about that a lot, and a lot of the people that are from this area, even if they didn't grow up where I did, they sort of relate to all of those things. I think in terms of small town upbringings and sort of uh, the the rebellious attitude that small town folk tend to have.
Right. Right. If now as a songwriter, what is one song that you have said to yourself, damn, why didn't I write that song?
Sand in My Boots by Morgan Wallen.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time I heard the piano version of that song. Um, I had just started listening to Morgan. I I had a real vendetta for modern country music there for a while. I
Mhm.
was when Cruise came out by Florida Georgia Line. That was kind of the beginning of an era,
Mhm.
and I really liked that song when it came out. But then the whole industry just like really leaned into that, right? And it just kind of
Right.
went down a road that I wasn't a huge fan of. But I grew out of that for the most part, and so later on, I started listening to more and more of the new guys, and I wasn't a huge fan of Morgan when he came out because, to me, he was kind of just putting out mainstream stuff. But then the new record, the Dangerous Double album, came out, and someone had showed me a song off of that, and I was really into it. And then I was on YouTube one day and saw that there was a piano version of Sand in My Boots. And I think I had heard the song one time, the studio version on the record. And then when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, like almost brought me to tears. It was so
Oh, yeah.
good. Um, it's not real complicated lyrically, but it says all the right things, and it doesn't matter how happy you are in your marriage or relationship or whatever it is, that song is going to make you reminisce a little bit. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and so that one really hit me, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, that song's amazing. I wish I could have wrote that song.
It's a phenomenal song. I mean, and I think when you talked about Cruise, I'm the same way. I really like that song, and I felt like it was it was a change that probably needed to be made,
Yeah.
but it kind of felt like the beginning of the end, you know.
Yeah,
But
it was like I said, it was definitely the beginning of a new era, and
yeah,
funny enough, I think we're kind of falling out of that era now. But
right, exactly. And that was like one of the first ones that had somebody from another genre come on board because they did the remix with Nelly.
yeah, well, that wasn't the first time Nelly had kind of dabbled in country music. You remember the song he did with Tim McGraw way back in the day?
Right, right.
Yeah,
Over and over. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And a song in my head. Yeah.
yeah. That was a good song. I saw Nelly in concert after that song came out, and he did the whole thing in concert.
Oh, did he?
He sang all the parts, and it was really good. But Tim
Yeah, yeah.
McGraw's version,
No, I was a fan of that song because I was, we listened to Nelly a lot when I was growing up, Air Force Ones and all that stuff.
mhm. Yeah. Oh gosh, he was. They actually, I got to tell you, um, our area has a huge rodeo every August, and they had a. I'm trying to think. Had some artists that couldn't make it. And I think this was like during COVID, so this was probably like 2020. They didn't shut down the rodeo. So they had to get somebody to come in and cover one of the nights. And I don't think it was because Ashley McBride, Chris Lane, a couple others were supposed to be here and they canceled out for whatever reason. I don't know if it was COVID related or something else, but they called Nelly. I've never heard of an urban rap, I guess, artist at a
Headlining a
rodeo.
rodeo.
Yeah, but the place was flipping packed out,
That's awesome.
and everybody was singing every song. I mean, you got all these people in boots and cowboy hats and got their buckles all polished up and looking sharp, and they're just wailing away
Yeah, that's
at,
awesome.
you know.
Well, and
So
and especially people that are my age, we kind of grew up in a time where
mhm,
music was so accessible.
yeah,
Um, I mean, if you're my age, you went through the whole transition. You went from radio pretty much exclusively. Maybe you had a cassette player in the truck, and then to
mhm,
a portable CD player, to a portable MP3 player, to an iPod, to an iPhone, to streaming. Right? I mean, I was alive for that whole transition to see music go from you have to go buy a record all the way to now you can listen to literally anything you want right off your phone.
right.
Um, but I think that's allowed, you know, people, especially my age, but everyone really, to access all different genres of music at any given
Mm,
time. You don't just hear the things your parents were listening to when you were growing up.
right. Right. And I think that's a good thing in a way. I mean, I work in radio for, the people that don't know, I work in radio during the day. I work at a classic country station. And, a lot of people are saying, well, the DSPs are the death of radio and all this. And in a way, I don't think it's the death of it, but there's definitely a line that needs to be crossed and figured out, to where we can combine the two, to where kind of radio and DSPs merge together on
Yeah,
what they're
something.
finding out.
Yeah.
Um, I love the digital because that's the best place to find new music,
Yeah.
you know, or I'll find them on, like I'll find on TikTok or I'll find on Instagram, and then I'll go over and listen to them on one of the digital service providers.
Right.
And so I mean, I just think it's really cool how you can, kind of use them to your advantage in a way. I mean, when I was programming a station and we were a new country and we tried to be the first one with the songs that were coming out, that's where I would go, and I would find
Yeah.
people, I'd go listen to like the new boots or something like that, and it find some of these new artists. It was really good. I mean, it does have its thing if it's done the right way.
Well, that's the thing about today's world. I think it's a pro and a con for new artists. The pro is that it's so easy to get your music out there now, right?
Hmm.
I think the downside is that it's so easy to get your music out there now, and so there's literally anybody that wants to make a record can put music out, and people may or may not listen to it, and so you can sort of get lost in the noise. But at the same time, you know, a lot of people that are, I guess, like me, independent artists that don't have a huge following yet, you know, they're kind of like, we don't make any money off of streaming and stuff, which is true. I mean, it's like $0.007 for one stream on Apple Music, but at the same time, it's so much more accessible to get music out there in the first place. I think it's to the benefit of new artists for sure. And also, I've talked to people in the area, and I even know a guy who used to work for one of the big country radio stations here in Oklahoma, and you know, everything is syndicated.
Right.
So, you know, someone like me, even being from Oklahoma and writing Oklahoma centric songs, is going to be really, really tough for me to try to get a song on one of those syndicated radio stations in the first place. And so you got to go to these local stations and do the whole radio tour thing. And I don't even really know of a lot of local radio stations around here anymore. I mean, I know they're out there, but I think most people, if they want to listen to country music, they tune into the 2 or 3 big stations that are on the radio, if they're listening to the radio in the first place.
Right. And that's the thing, if they are, because, you know, and I think a lot of people, you know, they talk about, you know, morning drive's a good place because everybody's driving to work. And so they're going to listen that time because it's easier to do that than, you know, have to log into your Spotify or bring up your Spotify. And then you got to find, you know, if you want to listen to a podcast or something, you got to search and all that stuff, you know, but that's, you know, it's kind of crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So let me ask you this. You're approached by someone who wants to take you out on tour. All right. Who would you want to go on tour with?
I think with the current style of music I'm about to put out, and I'm not just saying this because they're the 2 biggest. I think I would really fit in with this crowd. It'd have to be Luke Combs or Morgan Wallen. I think my current style of music, I don't want to say I'm writing Luke Combs and Morgan Wallen music because I don't think it is. I think it's got its own unique flair. But I think you know, they're sort of putting out music that has a modern sound, but it's also sort of normal guy music in a way, if that makes sense. It's not, you know, jacked up truck on the beach with a hot chick and a beer, like all this fake stuff that's in a lot of really mainstream stuff, you know, like that's, I'm not saying that never happens, but it's, you know, how often does someone actually go out and do that? Right. And these guys are writing songs about a lot more realistic things, but it also has a big, loud, rockin' modern sound. And I would say I fit into that mold pretty well. And also from listening to podcasts and interviews and stuff with Morgan and Luke and I guess Bailey Zimmerman now, who's on tour with Morgan and Hardy as well. All those guys seem like dudes that would fit right in with me and my friends, and vice versa. Right. So I think I would have a blast on those tours, and I think my music would resonate well with those guys' fans.
Barbie kind of got on you there. She said, you have a truck and a hot chick.
Yeah, that's my mother-in-law. And she's right about that. I do. I love my truck and I love my wife. So those are both true statements.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I saw that pop up. I'm like, I got to put that one on. She is getting on him. So, if I were if you were to allow me to take your iPhone and I opened up your music, that's all I'm going to open up is just the music. What artists, say like the top 10 artists, am I going to find on your phone that you've listened to in the last, I don't know, few days or whatever?
In the last few days?
Yeah.
Well, not to sound like a broken record, but you're going to see Morgan Wallen, Corey Kent, who's a relatively new guy who's also from Tulsa area.
Right.
He's getting ready to go on tour with Jason Aldean. Clay Walker, Dave Matthews, Leonard Skinnard, Marty Robbins, Luke Combs. Let's see, Nickelback, The Weeknd, Alan Jackson, Flatland Cavalry, Conway Twitty. You know, a wide variety. But
Right.
But yeah, that's all my recently downloaded and my most plays. So
Yeah. Nickelback has actually invited Brantley Gilbert to go out on tour with them, so that's going to be interesting.
That makes sense. That's a good fit.
I mean, he just came off the road with him and Five Finger Death Punch were out.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of, same beliefs when it comes to military and first responders and stuff like that. And so I thought I didn't get to go to the shows, but I've heard they were really, really good.
Yeah, there was kind of this fake movement for about a decade, I think, where everybody acted like they hated Nickelback, but I was never on that train. I mean, to me, if you didn't have Rockstar by Nickelback as your ringtone when you were 13, 14 years old, like then you're not telling the truth,
Right. You're not one of the cool kids.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like Nickelback was, the band to listen to when I was in junior high. And and I still listen to a lot of their really famous songs pretty often. So
yeah, that new album they've got out now, San Quentin, I think is the name of the album. That's the name of the single, but I think it's the name of the album. But that single is really good.
Yeah, but it kind of throws you for a loop. It starts out really heavy, but then it kind of transitioned into something a little more palatable for the mainstream, I think.
Right. I actually have a outside of my studio here, I have I don't even know how big it is. It's huge. It was the centerfold out of a Nickelback tour book, and I got to see them live, and so they autographed the whole thing, and so I had it framed and matted, and so it's hanging up outside my studio because I don't have anywhere. I don't have a wall big enough. Not to mention the glass. We were talking earlier about sound treatment stuff. The glass off of that thing would just be bouncing sounds everywhere. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've never gotten to see them in concert, but I know a couple people that have, and they said they put on a hell of a show.
Oh, they do. They put on a great one. That's why I really want to see them in this them and the Brantley tour. That's going to be something else.
Well, and I didn't realize this until recently, but their producer that was with them when they really took off, when Photograph and stuff like that came out, all those early songs that really blew them up. Their producer produces for Morgan Wallen now and Hardy.
Oh,
Joey Moy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that he was Morgan's producer, and I thought that was really cool. It makes sense. I mean, Nickelback always had really bright productions with, a lot of layered instrumentation, and a lot of Morgan songs sound that way too. So it makes sense.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff in the rock world. He actually worked a lot on Florida Georgia Line stuff.
Yes, that. Yep. I remember hearing that too. I learned all this on the Bobby Bones podcast, and so I remember him saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you get by with saying that, but
yeah, I didn't even know that stuff like that existed. Far as my industry knowledge is probably fairly minimal, and so when I discovered that show and you could learn so much about what's going on in the country music world by listening to that kind of stuff. So
right, and I got to admit, I listened to Bobby too. I'm not a well, I'm not even going to get into that. We're focusing on you. If I get into that, we'll be here another hour.
I got all night.
So, what would you say is your most embarrassing stage moment? I love this question.
Oh, so one of my first paid shows, I was right in the middle of a song, and I took a big breath to sing the next line, and I sucked something in and just started coughing my lungs out. And I don't know what it was that I inhaled, if it was a bug or what. I think it was the middle of the summer, but yeah, I was right in the middle of a song and just started hacking, and that was pretty embarrassing. But to be honest, I was playing at a venue where most of the crowd is a bunch of my friends and family and stuff, and so they didn't really care. But I was a little embarrassed, but I got away with it.
Right. But that's always, I mean, that's a great, that's one of the good stories I've had. I've had some that, they're like, well, I've never had an embarrassing stage moment. Yeah, you have. Everybody has.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think other than that FFA show I was telling you about, I was doing a cover of Country Boy by Aaron Lewis, which, I felt like I've always done that song really well.
Uh-huh.
And, I mean, I've known that song by heart since like the week after it came out. And, I just up and forgot the words right in the middle of the song, which 99% of people don't know the words as well as you do, but it was one of my first shows I ever did. And so I kind of froze and I was like, oh shit, I forgot the lyrics. But then what's funny is after the show, someone came up to me and they were like, hey, you sang the right words to that song. Like that, you didn't mess it up. And I'm like, well, I thought I did. And so I messed it up anyway, cause I paused in the middle of the song, cause I thought I forgot it. So there's another one for you.
You just did that for what do they call it, for just gosh, there's a certain term they use for that, kind of like an impact.
Yeah.
I just paused right here.
Yeah, dramatic effect.
There you go. Yeah. So now you sent me a song that you're working on. Now this song is going to be on your new album, right?
Southern Town.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I sent you is just an acoustic demo I did here at the house, and it's kind of an embarrassment compared to how it's coming along in the studio. But
that's fun because they're raw that way, and I like that.
Yeah, the vocals are pretty solid on it, but I am piss poor at producing acoustic guitar. I just haven't mastered that, and so it sounds super tinny. But yeah, it's going to be on the new EP that's coming here in a couple months, and it's the song I think I'm most excited about for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we do this? Even though you don't feel like it's as good as it's coming along in the studio, and when you fill them out, they generally sound totally different. But I'm big on the raw sound, and I think it sounds really good. I'm going to play that real quick and let folks
go
hear
ahead.
It. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about it a little bit more. And then I got some other things I want to hit on with you. And we'll probably go past our 9 o'clock time because we didn't start till late, because Austin and I were having a real good conversation till somebody butted in, Brian. And so, it's like, it's my show, dude. If I want to be late, I'll be late. Hush.
That sounds good to me. You can keep me here as long as you want. No problem.
So, but we'll play that, and then we'll come back and talk about some more stuff. All right, we'll do that in 30 seconds.
b4Nashville is proudly sponsored by Go-Go Tuners, the go-to tuner for professional and amateur musicians. Get your Go-Go Tuner at gogotuners.com. By Heart to Heart Coffee, the coffee that gives back. Find out more at heart2heartcoffee.com. By Sibby's Apparel, worn by heroes, made with respect. Order yours at sibbysapparel.com. And by Three Rangers Whiskey, not for the weak or faint-hearted. ThreeRangers.com.
A lot of people say they want to find the quickest way to get out of here. A few years later, you catch them on the lake, 2 kids and a bottle of beer. We might have thought we got too good for them parking lot kids on a Friday night. Now we're grown up, running right back to it, no matter how hard we try. You can't tell me you don't want to be right here where you call home, instead of out there on your own. Well, as for me, I'll stay, 'cause I don't smoke, but I like a strong nicotine buzz. I can't remember who I was before I love that taste. Ain't it a thing of beauty hearing them oak leaves whisper to me, and seeing Oklahoma sun come setting down on another long night in a southern town. I turned 18 and I left for school, yeah, it seemed the right thing to do. Met a blue-eyed girl from northern Illinois with a thing for cowboy boots. She liked the way I talked and I wanted to show her who I was. So I picked her up and drove her around the little town where I grew up. I said, I don't smoke, but I like a strong nicotine buzz. I can't remember who I was before I love that taste. Ain't it a thing of beauty, hearing them oak leaves whisper to me, see the Oklahoma sun come setting down on another long night in a southern town. I said I don't smoke, but I like a strong nicotine buzz. I can't remember who I was before I love that taste. Ain't it a thing of beauty, hearing them oak leaves whisper to me, see Oklahoma sun come setting down on another long night in a southern town.
All right, that is Austin and Austin Dixon, and doing Southern Town for you here on Before Nashville. I just totally lost what the name of my own show was there for a second. That was scary as everything. Wow.
Song just left you speechless, huh?
Yeah, it did. I mean, and that's one of the things I love. I've always said, because I've interviewed a lot of artists, and they're always like, well, we're going to do this acoustic, and I'm like, that's when I know how to tell that you're an artist, is when it's you and an acoustic guitar, because you don't have the cover up of the other instruments, and and not that you use it, but auto tune for some people, and stuff like that. So I love them raw. I mean, you can sit on stage all day long and sing every song on your playlist for me, or your set list, and I'll be a happy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear you.
So, I mean, it's just, to me, it's just, I just like it a little better. It's kind of like the writer rounds. When you go to a writer round, and all these people are doing their songs, it's just so, I think you get more of the emotion from them.
Oh, absolutely.
Honestly,
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a song that's going to be on the EP called Casino Road, and it's an emotional song that I think when you add in all the instrumentation and stuff, you lose a little bit of that. And I mean, I intended for it to be a fully produced, full band song, but it's just like we were talking about "Sand in My Boots" from Morgan Wallen, right? Like the studio version of that's an amazing song, but then when you strip it down to just Morgan and the piano, like it hits you in a whole different way. So yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that we hadn't talked about much, and I'm going to dabble in this just a second, and then I'm going to kind of shift to you. One of the things that we kind of hit on earlier, but that is gotten to be a must-have in the music industry nowadays, is social media.
Mm-hmm. You
have to have, and Facebook not so much, but you have to have Instagram and TikTok. I TikTok is one of those love-hate relationships that I have. I love it, but I hate it because I go down these rabbit holes with that thing, and I can spend hours just scrolling through TikTok.
Oh yeah, you can get lost on that and waste a lot of time without even realizing it.
Yeah. And Instagram's gotten really bad because we have a corgi. And so our corgi, I go down through the corgi videos, and my My wife and I probably send each other 50 corgi videos a day.
Yeah.
Pretty but TikTok, you kind of amass a lot of people watching your clips because of what you do. I mean, I've seen you do Conway Twitty, by the way. Great job on all those.
Thank you.
Chris Young, I think you did a Josh Turner song. I know you've done George Strait. I can't even remember all the artists I've seen you do on there, and I've just been so floored, by how good. I mean, you talked about your voice earlier and how people like that baritone, that you have,
Right.
and you just fit in with all those songs so good. I mean, Conway Twitty and gosh, Josh, Turner. Josh he's a baritone, but he's on the deeper end of a baritone.
Yeah, he's a bass. He's definitely a bass. Like I've almost got to do one of his songs first thing in the morning.
Before you have that first cup of coffee that loosens up the
exactly the way you get them things, just as long as they can possibly be.
Right. And Brian Harmon here, he said John Denver. Yeah, I mean John Denver. He's another artist.
I don't know if I've done a John Denver song, but I love John Denver.
I started to say I don't remember singing one, but I haven't seen them all.
That's not actually. I take that back. I've done "Take Me Home, Country Roads."
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, sometimes I'll get hooked on like watching you do those, and that's another rabbit hole I'm going down because I'm watching all your videos. And but I think I think they're so cool. I mean, I really love that part of it. And we talked a little bit earlier about are you still with me?
You cut out for just a second. I got you back now.
Something went back. I don't know if I hit a button or what. I was moving my keyboard. But you actually have a podcast yourself.
Yeah.
That is based on one of your early loves of motocross.
Correct. Yep.
And so, I mean, was that just from like being a kid and being, I mean, I don't want to say bored, but you just kind of got out and started doing that kind of stuff, or did it come into life later, or when did you get into the motocross?
Yeah, that started at a young age. My grandpa bought me and my brother a couple of four-wheelers. I think we were 7 years old, 7, 8 years old, something like that. And then, we figured out pretty quick that dirt bikes are cooler than four-wheelers. And so then we got dirt bikes, and we started going to a local track in Tulsa, made some friends at that track, and actually met my best friend at that track right when I started riding. I think I was 10 years old. And then, when you meet people at the track, they tell you about other tracks. And then before you know it, you're going to a race, and it just kind of snowballs. And I mean, one thing led to another. And all of a sudden we were doing that super competitively, especially my brother, for several years. I think it was 7 or 8 years. We were going all over the place doing that. And, my brother actually went to the amateur national championship, and, I was never as talented as he was on the bike, but I loved it just as much, if not more than he did. And I still do it to this day. My brother, unfortunately, hasn't gotten back into it. I'm trying to get him there, but yeah, that's still something I love to do. And the podcast thing started a few years ago. One of my buddies got me into listening to podcasts, and I just thought, man, what if we did a show where we just talked about local Oklahoma motocross? Like, I feel like at a minimum, like all of our buddies at the track would listen to it, which is a solid, 50 or 60 people.
Right.
And so we got some of the equipment and got it going. It took my buddies that do it with me some convincing. They weren't super convinced at first, but once we got rolling on it, all of a sudden our buddies were listening to it, and they told their friends about it. And, it's kind of like with everything else in my life. I never really realized how big of a deal it is until much later on. But the pit racing, I have it on my hat here. The pit racing podcast has kind of grown into more than what we even realize it is, I think, here in Oklahoma motocross. But it's really just a fun thing for us. It's a hobby.
Yeah. Well, and that's always good. I mean, it kind of gets you away from the grit and the grind of country music because it can be a grind. But that's not the only job you have. Now, I talked about the bit that we're going to do. So, give me just a second here, okay? Because I got to do this. Now, I got really intrigued when Austin and I first talked because we talked on the phone, and I said, what's your email? And he gave me his email, and it was the last part after the @ was at ou.edu, and I'm like, "Are you a student?" He goes, "No, I teach." And not that I was shocked by that. I mean, don't get me wrong. But then I find out that what you teach, because you didn't tell me that day. And I find out that you teach meteorology.
Yes, sir.
That is, to me, extremely interesting. And hi, Natalie, by the way. I'm guessing that's your wife.
Yes, sir. It is.
Yeah.
That is her.
So I'll tell her hi. And but tell me a little bit about that. What in the world got you into meteorology?
So I tell people that my first love was meteorology and my true love is music. But when I was a young kid, we had, and it sounds kind of hard to believe, but I think I was just before I turned 4 years old. We had one of the biggest tornado outbreaks in history happen here in the state of Oklahoma. It was May 3rd, 1999. And at that time, if the meteorologist on television called out Prattville, Oklahoma, which is the south side of Sand Springs, and it's hard to find on a map, but
right,
that night the meteorologist called out Prattville, Oklahoma, and that was a really big deal to my mom. And the tornado that was technically headed our direction ended up lifting well southwest of Prattville, but at the time, technology wasn't what it is today, and so they were giving everybody a lot of lead time. But I remember that night my mom put me and my brother in the laundry room, and it was dark and it was a big deal. And then in the days following that, and the years following that, I mean, everybody still to this day talks about that event. It doesn't matter if you're in the weather or not. Everybody in Oklahoma remembers May 3rd, 1999.
Right.
And that was really impactful for me. And then I think around the same time, the movie Twister came out, and I was just enamored with that. And put those two things together, and that sparked a passion for severe weather and thunderstorms and tornadoes. And this was well before I had discovered my love for music and my talents, I guess you could say. And being a meteorologist is a very realistic way of making money, right? So
right.
So I went down that road and chased it pretty hard all the way through a master's degree. And actually, I'm technically still a student. I'm a doctoral student at OU, and part of the gig of being a graduate student in meteorology is oftentimes they have you teach classes, and then you can make money doing that while you're getting your degree, and it covers your tuition and stuff like that. So I'm a student / employee for the University of Oklahoma.
Well, and I will say this, because apparently you do really well at it, because unbeknownst to you, I did some research about student ratings.
Oh yeah.
Of instructors. And
Rate My Professor. Did you find that website?
Yep, I did. Rate My Professor, 5 of 5. So I thought that was really cool. I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I get the opportunity to teach actual meteorology students that are getting degrees in meteorology, I definitely feel like I'm a very high performing instructor. When they put me in the classes that are for non-majors, the kids that are just taking a weather class to get some credits out of the way, it's not nearly as inspiring most of the time, because a lot of those kids are just there to get their grade and get out. You know what I mean? Which I totally understand. I had to take plenty of those classes in college. But when you teach the kids that are actually getting meteorology degrees and they're weather nerds like I am, they're usually really excited to be there, and that makes you excited to teach the class. And so I would imagine those high ratings on Rate My Professor are from classes that are actually meteorology majors.
And the interesting thing is because I've always been like really interested in meteorology, to be honest with you. I went through the storm spotter class, and that's about the most
Did
I've
you
ever
really?
done. Yeah. And I'm actually I did that a few years ago, and I'm looking to go back and do a refresher. And then they have a extreme weather spotter or something. They have like another step that you can go to. So I'll be taking that before long as well.
Nice.
Um, because I mean, being in radio, you're on the front line when something like that happens.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a really good point that I had never thought of. Is oftentimes in between the simulcast, the actual
Mhm.
radio guy will come in and kind of keep things going along until the simulcast comes back in. Yeah,
Right. And that's one of the big things. I mean, I don't say this to to pat myself on the back or anything, but I know that and I have been told that I have saved lives from telling people, "Hey, you better get in your safe place and get in it
oh,
now."
I
I mean,
believe it.
we're aligned with a local TV station, and the chief meteorologist there, he's all the meteorologists are really good, but the chief meteorologist is good, and when they have that kind of weather, of course, as TV stations do, then they go to wall coverage, and
Right.
so I have them on stream and running, but if something's happening local, somebody spots something within a 25-mile radius, then you know uh, that that's when I come on,
Yeah.
and it's good to have that kind of knowledge because
Absolutely.
um, we just you never know. The weather is a very fickle female. Sorry, all you
Yeah.
ladies out there, please don't leave. I know we have a lot of you. I don't mean that bad, but I always say Mother Nature needs to take her pill because apparently something's out of whack with her hormones. you know, because
Yeah.
like yesterday here, it was 70 degrees. Right now
Yep.
it's 35.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, good grief, make up your mind. Are we going to have spring? We're going to have summer, winter, or whatever. And
Yeah, you're at a pretty similar latitude to us, and
yeah,
yeah, it's the same deal here. In the wintertime, you can go from 60s, 70s for a couple weeks all the way down into the teens, if not lower. Sometimes it's pretty wild in January, February in this part of the world.
absolutely. And that's probably one of the things, now that I know what it's about, I'll probably be picking your brain from time to time.
Oh, you should. I'd love that.
I'm usually like I'll be on the National Weather Service Twitter site, and I'll have radar pulled up, and I'll be doing this and doing that, and trying to stay on top of stuff. Which I don't have a lot of computers in the studio at work, but I've got my phone, so I'm usually on the Twitter side of my phone. I have the radar pulled up over here, and I'm just kind of watching, and but sometimes I don't understand that stuff, and it's always
Yeah,
nice to have somebody you can go to and say, "Hey, can you explain this to me?"
one
And
of
that's why
I,
I
th-
have a weather spotter class, just so I kind of know a little bit more about it.
yeah, I don't want to take up the whole show with weather nerd stuff, but I think one of the biggest frontiers in terms of meteorology is communication moving forward. I
Mhm.
mean, we can get to a point where the science is almost perfect, but until we can get people to pay attention to warnings and things like that, we're not going to be doing the right job. So I think
Absolutely.
that's one of the big fronts, and actually you're starting to see a lot of research centers hiring social scientists and things like that to work on getting the message out in a better way that's more digestible to the common man. Because
Right.
one thing I can tell you about working with a bunch of scientists is they're not always good at talking to normal people.
Yeah.
So I've always sort of prided myself in being able to bridge the gap between normal people and the academic types, and so I think
Right.
that's one of the biggest things we need to figure out moving forward for sure.
Right. Most scientists, when they do talk to a normal person, it's over their head.
Yeah, they use
It's
they use too many big words.
right. They're talking here, but to me, if I'm talking to somebody like that, they're talking here, but
Yeah.
in their mind, they're where I'm at, and I'm like, no, I
Yep.
don't understand that. Um,
Exactly.
So now, one thing I do want to talk about though, because coming up May the 20th, which actually, if I can get it out, happens to be Armed Forces Day. You're going to be in Southeast Missouri. doing a
Correct.
show, Freedom Jam. And Brian, as he so often does, has put up a question. I get on him all the time. He's put up a question, and he just asked, why Freedom Jam? Out of all you could do, what makes Freedom Jam so special to you? Why did you want to be a jammer, as we love to call
Well, I really appreciate the fact that you think I've, got millions of opportunities. Probably not as many as you would think, but not as many as I would like to have. We'll say that. But no, when they reached out to me, it made perfect sense to me. Almost every grandpa in my family was served during Vietnam,
him?
and my great grandpa on the Dixon side served during World War II. And two of my best friends are both in the Navy. So, my family has somewhat of a military history, and I've always really respected that. And any opportunity to pay respects to that, whether it be through music or any other way, I'm going to jump on
Right.
that opportunity for sure.
Well, and we appreciate it. I mean, I'm very up to my neck involved in this. And so I can say, we appreciate, you being a part of this, because I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good show. And if folks do want to find out, more about it, you can always go to our website, which is freedomjamusa.net, or you can go to eventbrite.com and search Freedom Jam, and tickets are there. We've got, pretty decent ticket prices, and there's we've got a lot of artists coming. I mean, you're one of, I think 6 we're going to have that day. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Brian says, hope he likes whiskey.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're always a lot of fun. And Tina, who is actually, she owns the business that is called the Phoenix Veterans Pantry. That's our beneficiary this year. She's on here as well, and she's excited. She said she couldn't wait to see you either. But that's going to be a great show. So this is for people watching and stuff, freedomjamusa.net. Go there, check out some of the past pictures and stuff from other shows that we've had. And then you can go, if you want to come, it's by a lake. Bring your fishing pole. It's by a lake, and we're actually about probably less than half a mile, maybe a quarter of a mile from the lake, I think. Where we're doing it at, it's an outdoor show. It is in May, so the Missouri State bird, also known as the mosquito, will probably be out. And so you might want to make sure you bring bug spray with you. But we have some great artists. Our headliner, Morgan Miles from The Voice, is going to be the headliner. So, get your tickets for that. And in the meantime, all you Austin fans, he's going to be there. I can't wait. I'm excited to see you perform. Now, right now, talking to performances, are you, because you mentioned tomorrow night, you're doing the big show at Tumbleweeds. Is that a full band thing? Are you doing that acoustic, or have you gotten yourself a band at this point?
So that's a full band show, and it is with a group of guys that are just some buddies of mine here locally. They're older guys. They had a band back in the mid 2000s, and they chased it pretty hard. And now they're all, they all have families and full-time jobs. And they told me from the get-go, they're not in this for the long run.
Right.
So we're going to roll it through the battle of the bands as far as we make it. And then I think they're going to sign off. But getting a full-time band together is something I'm currently working on. So,
yeah. And that's kind of a chore too. I mean, trying to find the guys that you gel, because beside being great players, they have to have personalities that can connect and
that mesh well, right? Yeah.
not fight each other. So, now when you started into this, and like I said, you're on TikTok and you've had a lot of people that have liked your stuff on there. what do you feel like is the quickest way to grow a fan base for a new artist? If there's,
uh, shit.
is there any
Uh, I
such
think
thing?
I think I'm still trying to crack that code, to be honest. I'm obviously definitely pushing the social media route, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, the main thing is I don't really have the means to just, you know, drop everything and not make any money and be on the road 24/7. And I don't really think you have to do that as much as you did at one time. You
Right.
know, these guys that I'm playing for or that are playing with me for these Battle of the Band shows, they're just like, dude, that social media thing you got going is so awesome. Like if we would have had that back then, it would have changed the game because you don't have to be going to every single hole in the wall bar and festival and everything to try to build a fan base and try to get
Right.
people to go buy your CD. You know, now when my music comes out, I can do a TikTok live for 2 hours and say, hey, go download my stuff, go pre-save it, whatever. And, you know, I might have 50 people do it just from that.
Right.
So, you know, that's definitely what I have the most experience in. Obviously, I'm trying to learn everything I can. I would say I'm pretty young in the game for the most part in terms of my knowledge and experience. But, you know, on my front, in terms of what's most accessible to me, I'm definitely going to push the social media thing. And then, but at the same time, I'm trying to play as many shows as I can in as many places as I can, obviously.
Right.
You know, me and my wife's currently my manager at the moment, and she, you know, we both kind of made an agreement that we'll play anywhere as long as we break even on the weekend.
Right.
You know, like
Right.
we don't need to go somewhere and make tons of money. As long as we can get there without spending a bunch of money, then we're in.
All right. Well, and that's awesome because I mean, that's um my buddy Radius, he's a sound guy out of Arkansas. He says radio tour.
Yeah, I mean, when the
That thing
music
about
comes,
radio tours, you don't make money.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, and when the music comes out, I mean, I definitely want to do stuff like that. You know, I like I said, I don't know how big the local radio scene is anymore. I mean, I know around here it's a dying art form for sure.
Right.
But you know, if that looks like a good way to promote my music, then I'm definitely in for it for sure.
Right. Um Now, what I don't know if this is so much a question that you could answer right now, but if it is, that's great. What song of yours do you want to be most remembered for?
Hmm. That's tough. Um, Probably. I mean, on this EP, I would love for people to resonate with Casino Road in the same way that I do.
Mhm.
Um, because I've written some breakup songs over the years that, you know, at the time, like I felt like they were pretty good. But when I wrote this song, I was like, man, that's a good song. And it's not, I mean, it's relatable. It's not so specific to me and my life that other people can't relate to it. And I feel like it hits a lot of points for anybody that has gone through, you know, difficulties in a relationship or broken up with someone. And those songs always hit me the hardest. You know, whether I was in a happy relationship or not, I always felt like songs about breakups always hit me the hardest emotionally, just because, you know, that's some of the most raw emotion somebody can put into a song.
Right.
Um, but I don't know. I want people to love that song, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to be the front running song from the project. We'll have to see. To be honest, the songs that I think are going to be the big ones, I have other people tell me that they like other songs better. So I really have no idea. And I hear that all the time from artists. They're like, "Man, I thought this song was going to be the one, but it turned out to be this one." You know, so
Right.
I think Southern Town's going to do really well. Um, and I think Casino Road will probably do pretty well too. But there's a couple other songs that are going to be on the project that I think people are really going to like too. But
Right.
lyrically, I think Casino Road's probably my favorite at the moment.
Now, with with what you're doing, because you said, you're playing a lot of the Oklahoma area, and I think you've done a few shows down in Texas, so you're kind of hitting in the red dirt realm of things. And red dirt is its own animal when it comes to
Right.
music. It's totally different. They have their own set of rules that are different from Nashville. Um, are you good with that scene, or have you had a desire to get to Nashville?
I definitely don't want to be pigeonholed in red dirt. I think if the red dirt community likes my music, that would be totally awesome, because that's obviously where I'm from and I grew up with a lot of that music. So,
Mhm.
if that crowd likes my music, then that'll be great. But I want to get into the mainstream as much as the next guy, but I think this EP, I mean, to me, it feels like it bridges the gap between a red dirt sound and a Nashville sound. Like it really, to me, has a unique character to it. And I think a lot of people will agree with that. We'll have to see, obviously,
Right.
um, but in terms of just packing my stuff today and going to Nashville, no, I don't necessarily have that desire, because I could do that and be there for 10 years and nothing come of it. And
Right.
whereas I could build an audience here for the next 5 years, and probably be better off, really. Um, but if the day comes where it's a good deal and it makes sense for us and that requires moving there, then we'll do it. But
Right.
um, I don't necessarily say I have dreams of moving to Nashville anytime soon unless it makes sense.
Right. Right. If so, for people that may not be aware of you or your music or anything like that, where can they find out more? What's the best
Uh,
place to?
right now, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Um, I would say I'm the most active on Facebook and TikTok. Instagram, I don't know why it just hasn't taken off like the other two have. But yeah, I mean, I post on all three of those regularly, pretty much every day. I'll either put out a cover song or a announcement for a show, or updates on where the EP's at, stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of where things are at right now. And then I have a merch website too, if people want to buy some t-shirts and hats and stuff. But
Okay.
yeah, that's pretty much where you can find out everything about me at the moment.
Now, what is the merch website?
It's austindixonmusic.myshopify.com.
Okay. All right. So that way, if people want to get that kind of stuff, then they can go there and find it. Austin Dixon Music at myshopify.com.
.myshopify.com.
Not
Yeah.
myshopify.com.
And
Okay.
and right now, all my social media has links to the ticket sales for this Battle of the Bands thing. But as soon as that's over, the top of my profile is going to have links to all that stuff. So, and it looks like Natalie's working on putting a merch link in the chat. So,
Yeah. Way to go, Natalie. So now again, you got uh, the big show tomorrow night. But if you had to pick a festival or a venue or something like that, that is kind of like your dream, and I know a lot of people will say the Grand Ole Opry. But if you had to pick something that was your if I do that, I made it type of thing, what would that be?
Probably Red Rocks.
Good one.
Yeah. Anytime I see footage from that place, I'm just like, oh my God, what a venue.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think Red Rocks for sure. Just the atmosphere, and like when you're looking up from the stage at the amphitheater, it just looks like a sea of people amongst all of the red rocks, right?
Right.
So I think that one's very high on the list in terms of venues I want to eventually get into. Um, and then Kane's Ballroom in Tulsa. I think it's every Oklahoman's dream to eventually sell out the Kane's Ballroom in Tulsa. That's a very historic venue in town.
Hmm.
So those two are both very high on the list.
Right. Right. Well, and I mean, it's been a super cool blast to talk to you. I want to say absolutely good luck on coming up tomorrow night for your show at Tumbleweeds.
Thank you.
Uh, that's a great place to play. I've seen a lot of pictures. I've done a lot of research on them, and calf fry, and that's actually, is that where Parker's going to be at? Is the
Yep.
calf fry?
Yep. It'll be calf fry. I think that's May 4th. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if we win the competition, we'll be the opener on May 4th at calf fry.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. He's actually going to be here 2 days later. He'll be here here in my hometown. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It's something. Golly, I can't talk. It's just terrible tonight. Now there's the calf fry online battle of the bands. Unfortunately, it's not a link, so you can't click on that. I don't think, unless it's a link inside of the chat. So I don't want to say it is.
Yeah. So if that doesn't work, you can just go to calffry.com and click on the buy tickets, and then there's a picture of me. You got to buy tickets from my link. That's how you buy tickets to vote for us. If you buy tickets for any of the other guys, that counts as a vote for them. So definitely don't do that.
Right. Exactly. Well, good luck with that. And Austin Aldridge, he says it works. Okay. So good. We know that it works. So good deal. It's probably a link inside of the chat, but when I put it up on the screen, I don't know if it works. A lot of people are saying it works. I hope all these people are going there and buying tickets if they haven't.
Yeah,
already.
I hope so too.
So way to go, Natalie. That was good.
She's on top of this. She's always on top of the game. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm impressed because I probably couldn't have done that. So we're going to have you back very soon. Can't wait to see you coming up on May the 20th. That will probably be the first time I get to see you. And I think that's going to be an acoustic show that you're doing for that.
That's currently the plan. Yeah.
Okay. And so we're super excited just to have you there. I mean, it's going to be a fun time, and hopefully we'll have some of your audience coming from Oklahoma. I'm sure it's going to be a pretty far drive, but
I know I got family coming from Illinois. That's where my wife's family's from. I think a good group of them are going to come down, and then I got some buddies from Oklahoma that are going to make the trip. So
good deal.
And then you never know. Every show I do, I try to promote as much as possible on social media, and at least on TikTok, I've got people from all over the place. So hopefully we can get a handful of those out there too.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can. I mean, I'd love to see that, and love to see you there. I will be there. I can promise you that. And I'll be the guy running around like a chicken with his head cut off. So, if you need anything, just, if you can't find me, find somebody with a radio other than Brian. Brian has a radio, but he doesn't know how to use it. So don't look Brian up.
That sounds good. I'm looking forward to coming out there.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. So, Austin, thanks a lot for coming on, man. I've had a blast. I've really enjoyed our talk tonight and just hanging out and chatting with you. I mean, it's been, these are the kind of conversations I really like, whenever it's just a conversation, and you made it very easy to do that. So I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, like you said, I'd love to come back anytime.
All right. Well, we'll get you back on maybe even before Freedom Jam. You never know. We may have you back then. When is the EP coming out? Do you have a date set yet?
No, I don't have a date yet. We're looking to finish recording probably end of March. So
okay.
We'll probably leave at least 3 weeks or so to really push it hard on social media and everything, get as many pre-saves as we can. So looking like a middle of the spring, something like that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll look forward to it. I thought maybe we could have it out by May. I mean, you might have it out by then.
Yeah, I really hope so. I'm chomping at the bit to get this thing done, but I also don't want to rush it. It's coming along really good, and it's beyond what I would have imagined in terms of how it's starting to sound. So I don't want to rush anything. I want it to be everything it needs to be by the time we put it out.
Had a freeze up there. I don't know what happened there either. My wife must be on the internet.
No, what I was saying is, it's moving slower than I would like it to, but I think it's moving on the timeline that it needs to, because it's coming together really awesome, and by the time it gets out, it's gonna be great. So
good deal. Can't wait for it. Absolutely cannot wait for it. I'm looking forward to hearing it and hearing more of the songs on there. So, and you keep doing your thing on TikTok. You guys, if you don't follow Austin on TikTok, go over there and follow him there and check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Get his Instagram numbers up, and
Yeah, we need to pump those up for sure.
pump those Instagram numbers up.
It's at Austin Dixon Music on everything. So
okay, there you go. All right. Well, Austin, it's been great, man. I appreciate it, and we'll be looking forward to hearing you coming up in May.
yeah, thank you, sir. We'll see you again real soon.
Right. All right, everybody, y'all have a good night, and we'll be seeing you soon.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow Before Nashville on all social media and listen wherever you get your podcast. Tune in again for another country star of tomorrow on Before Nashville with George Davis. I'm Kevin Casey on behalf of Worldwide Pants. Have a great night.